By now, we know that there are many different categories of cars, and in theory that should make it easier to file all the models into those different categories. But it can get tricky, especially when a particular model on the surface seems to fit into one class, but then when you start to scratch around and doing some investigation, you see that it could belong in quite another class. The Honda BR-V is one such car. Honda will tell you that this is an SUV. I'm not so sure though. Carrying a similar badge to its genuine SUV option, the CR-V, is certainly one of the factors that counts in its favor, but a lot of specs suggest that it is, in fact, more closely related to the less adventurous MPV class. To be fair though, at this end of the market, your SUV expectations are probably somewhat watered down. For example, you probably won't be surprised to hear that the BR-V doesn't have all-wheel drive, and that's a good thing because it doesn't. What it does have is some plastic bits, some roof rails, and a look that certainly suggests it can play the SUV part. It actually looks pretty good, assuming you like Honda's big car styling. Unmistakably related to the CR-V, the BR-V has a similar chunky style with big chrome accents and at least the suggestion that it can handle a bit of dirt. We're driving the middle of the range spec, which includes the 16-inch alloy wheels. The rear is a little less convincing. The taillights are a decent design with the red strip between them adding a little something, but the tailgate is quite a slabby thing, giving an overall appearance of being a bit droopy. I think the primary reason for my skepticism/confusion is this interior. Not because of the materials or the layout or the spec, those are all fairly good for the price, but because the BR-V comes standard with 7 seats, which is 2 more than any other SUV at a similar price. But it's also exactly the same amount as the straight up and down MPV Toyota Avanza, which also costs the same amount. The third row isn't the kind that fold into the floor, but folding them up means there's a decent amount of boot space. Weirdly though, in the folded position, it doesn't lock into place, relying rather on this little strap to keep it secure. The second row seats are adjustable and also fold up, creating even more rear space, albeit one without anything even remotely close to a flat floor. Spec-wise, the entire BR-V range is decently equipped with Bluetooth, USB, aircon and electric windows all round. Depending on how high up the range you go, you can also get keyless operation, steering wheel mounted controls and leather seats. You might think this car's SUV-ness has something to do with where it can go compared to, say, that Avanza I mentioned earlier. Well, no, because the Avanza and this car have nearly identical ground clearance figures. And the BR-V doesn't even have any quasi-off-road systems like hill descent control. It is quite literally a straight up and down road-loving front-wheel drive. It doesn't even come in a diesel. The entire range has just one engine choice, Honda's 88 kilowatt, 145 Nm, 1500 naturally aspirated petrol. We've got the 6-speed manual. There is also an option of a CVT, which we'd usually avoid, but if it's anything like the CVT in the Honda Civic, it might actually be preferable. Now that I think about it, maybe not. The problem is that you really have to get the revs up to get the best out of this engine, and the noise that that would make in combination with a CVT gearbox might just make you suicidal. With a torque peak that comes in at 4,500 RPM, this is an engine that has to try really hard. And when it does, you know all about it. Not because of any rapid forward progress, but because of the noise it makes. Honda claims a fuel consumption figure of 6.3 litres per 100 Ks, but because of the rev-hungry nature of the engine, our figure was closer to the 7.7 mark. Despite its noisy engine and its lack of any real off-road ability, there is still some enjoyment to be had in the BR-V. For one thing, the all-new gearbox and the shift action itself are really enjoyable. The car generally feels quite planted, and on a more practical note, it is fantastically maneuverable. A turning circle of around 10.6 meters coupled to easy steering means that getting around in tight spaces is super easy for this SUV that's actually more like an MPV. From a daily drive point of view, it has its definite strengths. But I'm still not convinced by Honda's claims. Say what you want about the BR-V being a similar size to a Renault Duster or having similar chunky looks to a Ford EcoSport. But with its interior comfort, its 7 seats and its ease of use, to me that is less of a dirt-going SUV and more of a worthwhile MPV. Don't look for the Honda BRV's talents under the bonnet. The 1500 motor needs a lot of revs to get anything out of it, and it's pretty noisy while doing it. The 6-speed gearbox is very good though. Confused categorization aside, the Honda BRV offers space for 7, a decently equipped interior, and the ease of use that's needed for a daily city drive.